The only thing that broke the idyll of this forgotten place was the old house on the hill. It stood on the outskirts, with its pointed roof reaching up to the low, leaden sky. It had been built by the current mayor's grandfather, a mad industrialist who had disappeared during the Civil War. It was said that he was interested in spiritualism and tried to find a way to communicate with the dead. Since then, the house had changed hands dozens of times, but no one had lived there for more than 6 months. People left at night, their faces pale, leaving no explanation, only whispering to the priest in confession about a silence that was too loud. Mark and Lisa had come to Prosek from a city suffocated in concrete and smog. They were looking for peace, comfort, and a place to raise their future child. The house on the hill was being sold for a fraction of its value. The agent, a nervous man with sweaty hands, tried to persuade them to look at other options, but they were captivated. The views from the hill were stunning, and the spacious rooms with their ornate ceilings were filled with history. They bought it, ignoring the stares of the locals and the strange, intricate seal burned into the floor of the living room, a large circle with interlocking lines, like a maze diagram. The first weeks were heaven. The air was filled with pine, birdsong in the mornings, evenings by the fire. They painted walls, assembled furniture, laughed. Their happiness was so loud it seemed to banish the very thought of anything sinister. The first strangeness happened to Lisa. She woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling of complete, absolute silence. It wasn't just a lack of sound. It was a different kind of silence, thick, dense, like cotton in her ears. She couldn't hear Mark's breathing next to her, the creaking of the old house, or the wind outside, nothing. It lasted maybe a minute, and then the sounds returned with their usual clarity. Lisa attributed it to fatigue and her pregnancy. But the quiet moments, as they called them, began to recur. More often, and for longer periods of time. And each time, something else began to emerge in that absolute silence. At first, it was a barely audible whisper, as if someone were rubbing dry leaves in the next room. Then, the whispers began to contain individual words and fragments of phrases spoken in a strange, guttural language. At first, Mark didn't believe it. He thought Lisa was experiencing hormonal fluctuations. But one day, he too experienced a quiet moment. He was standing on a staircase, hanging a painting, when suddenly, the sound of the world was turned off. In this Savenasu void, he heard it, a low, monotonous hum coming from the very core of the house. And through the hum, he heard the whispers. This time, they were clearer. It seemed as if dozens of voices were saying the same word, stretching it out in different ways, to stay. They started looking for information. The internet in Prosek was terribly slow, but they managed to find a mention of an occult industrialist. His name was Ignaty Prosekinsky. He believed that the true essence of a person was not in their flesh, but in the sound, in the vibration of their soul. He was trying to create a resonator, a device that could capture the sound of the afterlife, and allow them to hear the voices of the departed. According to the diaries that someone posted online, his experiments led to unintended consequences. He created a breach in a world of silence, from which quiet people began to infiltrate our world. Who are the quiet people? Lisa whispered, her face pale. There's nothing in the diaries. It's just a name, Mark replied, but a chill ran down his spine. That night, the quiet minute lasted almost half an hour. The whispers turned into an obsessive, repetitive call. Open. Let us in. Stay with us. The hum grew so strong that the windows began to shake. And then they saw them. The shadows in the corner of the room thickened, taking on human-like shapes. They had no faces, just vague outlines, like blurred spots in a photograph. They didn't move. They just stood and looked at the couple from their faceless emptiness. The same all-consuming silence emanated from them. Mark grabbed Lisa's hand and they ran out of the bedroom, slamming the door. My heart was pounding so hard that it seemed like it was about to jump out of my chest. We're leaving. Now, Mark shouted. They rushed to pack their things, but the house responded. The lights went out. The flashlights on their phones only illuminated a meter around them, and beyond that circle, there was only darkness and that eerie silence. They heard the creaking of the stairs. Slow, heavy footsteps. Not theirs. They're coming, Lisa sobbed. Mark pushed her into the closet under the stairs. Stay here. Don't breathe. He slammed the door shut and, picking up a heavy candlestick, prepared to meet his uninvited guests. The footsteps drew closer. There were many of them. They filled the entire first floor. Mark froze in the darkness, clutching the cold metal. Suddenly, the silence receded. He could hear the wind howling outside the window and his own ragged breathing. He waited for another 10 minutes before venturing out of his hiding place. The house was empty. It was dark, but empty. On the floor of the living room, he saw fresh footprints leading to the front door. It was as if someone had entered from the outside and then left again. Lisa, they're gone, he shouted, throwing open the closet door. She sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, staring silently at the wall. Lisa, honey, it's okay. We're leaving. She slowly turned her head towards him. Her face was expressionless. Why? Her voice was flat, without emotion. It's so quiet here. So good. Mark recoiled. There was something alien and empty in her eyes. What's the matter with you? He's right, she continued in the same wooden tone. Ignatius was right. The essence is in silence. Noise is pain. Hustle and bustle. Fear. And here, there's nothing here. Only peace. Eternal peace. She stood up and walked into the living room, towards the very seal on the floor. Mark followed her, gripped by horror. Lisa, please, pull yourself together. This is not you. I am an illusion, Mark, she smiled, and that smile was the scariest thing he had ever seen in his life. I is just a set of noises. And they know how to drown them out. She sat cross-legged in the center of the print and closed her eyes. And there was silence again. But this time it came from her. From his Lisa. Mark rushed to her, trying to lift her up, shake her, and shout in her ear. But his fingers barely touched her shoulder before he yanked his hand back with a wild scream. Her body was icy. Not just cold, but icy, like a corpse that had been lying in the snow for a day. Around Lisa, the air rippled, and they began to emerge from nothing, the quiet men. There were 5, 6, a dozen of them. They surrounded her, faceless shadow guards, and their silence was louder than any roar. Mark understood. They didn't want to harm her. They weren't evil in the traditional sense. They were different. They were parasites of peace. They drowned out all sounds, all life, all human essence, leaving only an empty shell that slowly froze and joined their silent choir. He ran to the door to call for help, to find a priest, anyone. But the door wouldn't open. It was locked from the inside, as if it had been jammed shut. He rushed to the phone. But there was no signal. Not at all. Desperate, he grabbed an axe from the woodpile and, with a wild scream, tried to break through the wall of silence with his own noise, and rushed towards the figures surrounding Lisa. The axe passed through the shadow without encountering resistance, only breaking its shape for a moment. The figures slowly turned towards him. And even though she had no eyes, Mark felt the full horror of her attention. The silence crashed down on him with renewed force. He fell to his knees, clasping his ears, trying to drown out the pervasive hum of soundlessness. He felt his own thoughts slowing, fading, sinking into the thick tar of silence. His memories lost their color and emotion, becoming mere facts. The joy of his first encounter with Lisa, a silent movie. The excitement of buying this house, an empty void. Love, fear, and rage all sank, dissolved, and were drowned out. He raised his head. Lisa was still sitting in the same position, and there were already 24 shadows around her. And he realized that he didn't want to fight anymore. It's so exhausting to feel. It hurts so much to love. It's so scary to be afraid. Eternal rest. Isn't that what everyone deep down desires? His hand loosened, and the axe fell to the floor with a thud. The sound was alien, distant, unrelated to him. He stood up slowly, very slowly, and took a step forward. Then another. The shadows parted, allowing him to enter their circle. He sat down next to Lisa, their fingers intertwined, cold and lifeless. He closed his eyes and sank into silence. Real, complete, uninterrupted silence. There was nothing in it. And it was beautiful. Ellipsis. The real estate agent was driving his clients, a young couple from the city looking for privacy, again. He was trying to persuade them to look at other options, but of course they were drawn to the mysterious old house on the hill, sold for a pittance. They walked up the overgrown path. The house looked well maintained, as if someone lived there. In the yard, a woman was sitting in a rocking chair. She was very pale and completely motionless. A man was standing next to her. They didn't move and just stared at a point in the distance. "Excuse me," the agent called out, "we're here for an advertisement." "Are you selling the house?" The couple slowly turned their heads towards them, as if with great effort. Their faces were serene and blank. "Sell," the woman said quietly, almost in a whisper. Her voice was flat, without inflection. "No, we don't sell. We share." She smiled faintly, and the agent's stomach turned cold. "It's very quiet here," the man added in the same monotone. "That's good. Stay here." The young couple, not feeling a trick, smiled at each other. They already liked this place.